agenda on my screen here for the meeting. Let me log out and I'll log back in.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, I'm back in.
There you are, sir. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Okay, no problem.
Mr. Chair, you're ready to go, sir.
Excellent. Okay, for everybody that's joining us today, welcome to the July 1st, 2020 Historic Preservation Commission meeting. This is our third video conference historic preservation meeting. One thing I also want to point out today is this is the first time that we have gone paperless, so bear with us while we adjust to what we believe are cost savings and environmental savings for the city. But just know that if we're clicking on our screen and shifting back and forth, that's what we're working with. My name is Taylor Fudge. I'm the chair of this committee, and as you guys are aware, during the COVID-19 pandemic, we do not have a physical location that we will be providing for this commission meeting. Instead, we're going to stream it live or stream it remotely. I want to remind everyone that as you arrive in the virtual meeting, we do have your mic muted with the exception of our commissioners. We have posted an agenda, and those who called or emailed us in advance to let us know the name, contact number, and agenda item they wish to speak about will be recognized first. Before the HP commissioners vote on each item, we will ask members of the general public if they wish to speak, and anyone speaking will be given 3 minutes. If you are muted, or since you guys are muted when I call on you, please unmute yourself. On the phone, you'll press *6, state your name and address for the record. And on a desktop or laptop, you'll hover your cursor over the microphone icon to remove the red diagonal line, or as Commissioner Brown pointed out earlier, you can press the space bar to temporarily unmute. If we do lose our connection for this meeting, it will be stopped and we'll reconvene once the connection is restored. If we're unable to restore within a 30-minute time frame, we will push all of the remaining items for consideration to our next regularly scheduled Historic Preservation Commission meeting, which will be on August 5th. The agenda and documents are located on OKC.gov. Written comments received more than 24 hours before the meeting are posted online and were shared with commission members. And at this point, no new material can be shared during the meeting. So with that, is it Jennifer, are you calling roll today?
That's me, sir. Thank you so much. Commissioner Fudge.
Present.
Commissioner Ryman Philippe.
Present.
Commissioner Brown.
Present.
Commissioner Meacham.
Present.
Commissioner Milner.
Present.
Commissioner Schultz. Commissioner Zacharitz. Mr. Chair, you have quorum.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, so procedures for today's meetings are noted in our agenda. For the sake of time, I'll ask that any participants who are unfamiliar with the process refer to that section if they wish. Want to make a specific note on certificates of appropriateness. When an application has been approved and after a 10-day protest period has expired, the Historic Preservation Officer will mail the certificate of appropriateness to the applicant. City construction permits cannot be issued until that CA has been issued. And I would ask that you please contact HP staff for final design review or inspection, or to withdraw items that will not be completed. With regards to appeals to the Board of Adjustment, any person aggrieved by any decision granting or denying a certificate of appropriateness may appeal to the Oklahoma City Board of Adjustments. All appeals shall be made within 10 days of the commission decision by filing a written notice of appeal with the clerk of the Board of Adjustments. And with that, let's see. Katie, do we have any news from the Office of the Historic Preservation Officer?
One thing I wanted to note, as the chair just announced, all new materials for the meeting were received prior to the meeting and posted online. No new material can be presented at the meeting today, and that includes screen sharing, because we have participants that are participating via phone only. We are not allowing screens to be shared other than the screen of city staff sharing previously provided available online PowerPoint presentations. So just so that if anyone in the public attempts to share your screen, we're going to block you. And anything that we haven't already received can't be displayed at this time during the meeting. The other thing I wanted to call attention to at the beginning of the meeting, while we have a little bit more of an audience, is the item under City Council at the end of the agenda, Chapter 60 revisions. This is to let people know that revisions to application fees for HP as well as our other design review districts were revised, and those will go into effect July 16th. There's a link there where you can read more about that and the specific changes that were made, but fees for administrative approvals will go down a little bit, and fees for our commission review items will go up a little bit, be a little more proportionate to the scope of work for the applicants and the scope of work for staff in preparing those items for review. And that's all I have.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, we'll move on to item 3, which is reviewing the minutes from our previous meeting. It looks like that was on June 3rd. Have my fellow commissioners had a chance to review those minutes? And if so, do we have a motion to accept or modify? How would we like to take that?
So moved.
So seconded.
Awesome. So moved by Alan Brown, seconded by Joe Meacham. All in favor? Do we vote on that one? Yes. All in favor, say aye. Or vote in Prime Gov. Looks like we are waiting on a vote from Commissioner Milner.
I show the vote coming up, but it still just says waiting on my screen.
Okay.
I feel like this happens to me often. And I'm as close to the Wi-Fi as I can get in the house.
There
So
you go.
can I just go, can I just say A? Will that work? And
Yes, Jennifer here. Commissioner Milner votes yay for this item. Is that correct, Commissioner Milner?
yes, thank you.
Excellent. Motion's carried. Minutes are approved. Moving on to item number 4. Katie, do we have anything from code enforcement that we need to relay?
Nothing specific to report. I don't believe we have anyone from code enforcement joining us for the meeting today. As always, if you have questions about any items in the code enforcement report, feel free to reach out to our staff or to the city's action center, and they can try and put you in touch with the appropriate person addressing those code enforcement issues. When you do see a citation number over in that column, that means it has progressed from a notice of violation to an actual citation, and you can reference that citation number if you contact staff or code enforcement.
Perfect. Thank you. Same, let's see, item 5. Katie, any continuance announcements or requests?
No uncontested requests and no new requests at this time.
Perfect. Moving on to item 6, in terms of public hearings, dilapidated structures.
No dilapidated structures this month. We have 2 National Register nominations.
Perfect. And Klaus, it's my understanding that you will be recusing yourself from item 1.
That is correct. Thank you.
We will invite you back shortly. Let's talk about the National Register nominations. Item 1 in NRHP 20-00003 at 141 Northeast 26th Street.
This is located in Jefferson, well, no, I'm sorry, it's not in a district. It's the Jefferson Park Neighbors Association and OKC Housing Services Redevelopment Corporation in Ward 7. This application is by Sarah Warnicki, Oklahoma State Historic Preservation Office, for consideration and possible action on a resolution regarding a proposed National Register nomination for the McClean family residence. I believe we also have the consultant who prepared the National Register nomination on the call, and Sarah Warnicki, if you're on the call, if you all have questions. And this is actually 20-3. if we've got that one. Yep, 141
Yes.
Northeast 26th Street. This property is nominated for its significance under the criteria for architecture and is representative of very early rural development of what was then the outskirts of Oklahoma City, before and shortly after statehood, in an area that is now much more densely developed with commercial and industrial uses. This was a early homestead site. The house was built in approximately 1911 and occupied by members of the family for the next 80 years or so, and remains as a very intact and rare example of that period of development in Oklahoma City's history. So on these, we make a recommendation to City Council, and then that is forwarded on to the State Historic Preservation Office and the Keeper of the National Register.
Perfect. So Sarah, or is there anybody else that wishes to speak on this particular nomination?
I don't have anything to add. I'm just here if anybody has any questions about the nomination. I think the nomination pretty much says everything that needs to be said.
Perfect. Do any commissioners have any questions on this particular recommendation? And do we have any citizens that wish to be heard about on this particular nomination as well? Okay, do we have a recommendation?
Okay, I move you recommend the nomination of the McClean family residence to the mayor and city council and adopt the resolution provided as part of the staff report.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We had a, John, was that your second?
Yes.
Okay, so moved by Alan Brown, seconded by John Milner. All in favor, please vote. Okay, motion is passed. We will recommend that on, and we would like to invite Klaus back to join us for the second recommendation and nomination. Item number 2, NRHP 20000004 at 1440 North Everest Avenue.
This property is owned by the Oklahoma City Redevelopment Authority, Ward 7. This is an application, again, by Sarah Wernicke, Oklahoma State Historic Preservation Office, for consideration of possible action on a resolution regarding the proposed National Register nomination for the Brockway Community Center. This property is nominated under the criteria for its historic significance. It is a residence that was built in 1915 with additions in 1955, but is significant for its historic association with colored women's clubs, and I'm pulling up the document to make sure I tell you the name right. The Oklahoma Federation of Colored Women's Clubs that was founded here in 1911. They had several locations around Northeast 2nd in that area, and then eventually in 1968 moved to this property and were located there until they sold the property in 2011. These were organizations that were nationwide, and this was a very active, prominent local chapter here in Oklahoma City that still exists today. They just don't occupy this property anymore. People will likely remember that this property was in the news quite a bit and was potentially going to be demolished, but is now planned to be preserved and restored by the property owner. And Sarah and the consultant associated with the property may be able to speak more to that if anyone has questions.
Any questions from the commissioners, or Sarah, do you have any comments that you want to make in addition?
Again, I think the nomination pretty much says it all. I think that this building has gone through quite an ordeal as of late, and I think that it is to finally see this nomination going forward, I think is great. So I'm really glad that the new property owner sees that it is significant and needs to be saved and is willing to do so.
Yes.
So.
Well, thank you for the work that you put in on this project. Any questions from commissioners? Any citizens that wish to be heard on this particular recommendation? Okay, do we have a motion to recommend that this be moved on?
I'll make a motion to recommend approval of NRHP 200004.
We have a second.
Second.
Moved by Klaus Ryman Phillips, seconded by Joe Meacham. All in favor, please vote in PrimeGov. Okay, motion passes. That will be, we will make the recommendation to move that on to the National Register for nominations.
Thank you so much. I appreciate
Thank
it.
you guys. Okay, so we will move on to the items, let's see, 6C, consent docket cases. Do we have anything in here that our commissioners wish to pull?
Nope.
Do we have any citizens that wish to be heard on these particular items? Do we have a motion to approve the items in the consent dockets?
I move we approve the consent docket.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Moved by Alan Brown, seconded by John Milner. All in favor, please vote in PrimeGov. The consent docket has been approved. For anybody that was here for that, you may leave or stick around to hear the cases for individual consideration. Thank you, guys. Okay, so we will move on to item D, cases for individual consideration. And I believe, are we going to move one of our cases up in order, Katie?
Yes, we discussed, we have the potential to lose quorum a little while later in the meeting. And we have one item that a commission member has to recuse themselves on, which would then not have quorum. So if the commission is comfortable with it, we'd like a motion to move D4, HPCA 20-70 up to the top of the agenda, the cases for individual consideration. And Jennifer, I did not give you a heads up on that. I apologize, making you skip around.
And yeah, I'll make a motion to move HPCA 20-00070 to the top of the list. And also I'm the commission that needs to recuse himself. So I will be leaving this conversation after.
Do we have a second?
Second motion.
Excellent. So moved by Klaus Ryman Phillips, seconded by Joe Meacham. All in favor? Please vote.
You'll have to give me 1 second, guys, while I switch this around a little bit. 1 moment, please.
Okay, the motion to move item number 4 to the top of the consent docket for individual consideration is passed. Let's talk about HPCA 20-00070 at 833 Northwest 42nd Street.
This is located in Crown Heights, Ward 2. Consideration and possible action on application by Jared Smith for Hunter Griffin to item 2, construct new residence elective, and item 5, demolish garage elective, and 6, construct new garage elective. This is a property that we recently reviewed that had a serious fire and the structure had to be demolished. That was approved at a previous meeting, and the applicant now proposes to demolish the remaining garage and to construct a new residence and new garage at the property.
Excellent.
I believe we have the applicant on the call, as well as neighborhood association representatives that may wish to speak as well.
Perfect.
Katie, and Angela, just a small point. The staff report is labeled D2.
Okay, we'll make sure that gets corrected next time around. Thank you.
Okay. Is the applicant present?
Yes, I'm here.
Perfect. Can you
Jared
talk to us a
Smith.
little bit about your project, please?
Yeah, so this was the project that had a significant fire, well, several months ago now, but looking to go ahead and demolish the remaining structure on that, the garage that you're looking at photos there from. And then we really wanted to try to do something that was that did fit in with the neighborhood in Crown Heights, as I actually do live in the neighborhood as well. But also we really love the Art Deco style, so therefore that's what you're seeing there, and that's what we kind of went with, trying to kind of mimic the few Art Deco styles in the neighborhood there at 801 Northwest 40th, and at it's 640. I think 640 or 641 Northwest 41st is the other one that we mimicked the white brick and the style after.
Any questions from commissioners on this particular project?
I have an interest in this project. It was just interesting because we haven't had a new build, to my recollection, in Crown Heights. So after reading the staff report, I also read the National Register nomination for Crown Heights to actually see why the neighborhood was nominated, what kind of architecture is in the neighborhood, because there was part of the staff report said that, or to me, it suggested that it says the guidelines encourage incorporating existing architectural features into new construction. And that's not my interpretation of the guidelines. To me, the guidelines for new construction, it can be used, but it's not necessarily a starting point. To me, the starting point is that it fits into the neighborhood. And I felt like that saying that incorporating architectural features and some other comments on being consistent on the street, that's really kind of what led me to do a little more research, because we've actually had people do kind of what I would say a copy of a Tudor revival. And in my opinion, they have not all been that successful, particularly when they're sitting next to a real Tudor revival, because it just seems like it points out how they are not different and not in a good way, in my opinion. So actually, after reading the nomination, which has about, I think there's over 500 houses in the district, 40% were Tudor revival, 35% were colonial revival, and then there was minimal, traditional, mission, Spanish colonial, classic revival, Monterey, Italian Renaissance, French eclectic, and the international style. So you have this 25% actually are all kind of different and range from, I actually counted, there's, let's see, on this particular street, I guess, there was on the entire 42nd Street, there was around 55 Tudor colonial, 15 colonial revival, some minimal traditional, and 2 ranch styles. Anyway, so I think in my opinion, what makes these neighborhoods so wonderful and beautiful is their diversity. And definitely Crown Heights, although, it's kind of dominated by 1 or 2 styles, the diversity of the other individual styles, I think, enhances the overall look. Because I think that this is a tough, these new construction projects are very tough. So I guess I just wanted to do this research to give me an idea of why I would want to approve or not approve of a design like this on this particular street. And so basically my research convinces me that really having something different next to the Tudor Revival is going to be less of a disturbing effect. And actually, it's kind of a weird one. Actually, something different might fit in better here. And I have a true belief that we should let designers of our period show themselves to some degree, how well they can do something in context. And I feel like that going this direction is actually allows the designer, I didn't know that it was Klaus. If that's who it is, he recused himself, but it really allows the designer to be more creative on how to actually design in context. And so I just wanted to share my research and say that that is the reason that I think that this is a good direction. I mean, I want to hear all of the discussion, and there's perhaps lots to discuss. I don't know how the neighborhood feels about it, but I actually do feel like that this, for these reasons I've stated, will feel less like a new construction project than if we tried to copy a 1930s Tudor Revival. And just for everybody's information, the majority of this, which is kind of weird because it was during the Depression, this particular neighborhood was not started. The first house was not started until 1930, and most 95% of it was finished by 1941. So it's always been an unusual neighborhood in that it was built during the Depression. So those are my thoughts that I wanted to share with everybody before at the beginning of the discussion. So I am through with that.
I'm just pleased to have learned quite a bit more information about the neighborhood that I live in. So I mean,
Well, you too may get online and read the National Register nomination. Okay, and I will add, this is a weird thing, is that I actually worked for the city in 1995 in the Historic Preservation Office. And I wrote the nomination for Crown Heights. I didn't even remember that because I used to write quite a few. It's been quite a few years ago. So anyway, it is very interesting, and you should find the link. I'll send you the link, and then you may share it, because I think that it is fun to read about it. And there's, particularly in these times, there's a lot of also pertinent information that would interest you.
Yeah, great. Well, Commissioner Meacham, I certainly appreciate your research on this. I did not expect that to be the direction that you were going with it, but I definitely appreciate it. Now, I do struggle with it a little bit. Just it is, a far change from what is traditionally on that block. So I think there is some compatibility issues. It does seem pretty high style, but obviously very, very, very cool. But curious, do we have a neighborhood representative that wishes to speak on this particular item as well?
Taylor, this is Katie. I just wanted to interject briefly that just to clarify that Klaus is he's not associated directly with this project, but had other reasons to recuse. I didn't want anyone's judgment stated by.
I just assumed that.
No, it's just fine. I just wanted to clarify.
Perfect.
Well, I've got a general comment also. I kind of agree with Joe, but I don't think this is representative of contemporary design in context of the neighborhood. It's like replacing one historical knockoff with a different historical knockoff. It's high style. It's some Art Deco-ish house, but I don't see how that's any more acceptable than a neo-Tudor knockoff, personally.
Well, I would just respond to that is that, to me, it's a jarring difference when somebody tries to copy a Tudor and puts it next to an original.
Well, I agree. I think that would be worse because it'd be
that would be worse. So I guess I might not go this direction if I was the designer, because I have a different interpretation of what belongs in historic districts. I personally feel like that contemporary architecture built with compatible massing and size and those kind of characteristics, in my opinion, would be my personal direction. But this commission has approved, the only things I have seen approved and been a part of since I've been on the commission are houses that in the end, most people would not be able to determine if they were built today or in 1920 or 1930. So, I mean, to me, it's a struggle also in that it's not my interpretation of the national guidelines to copy things that are already there, but that is the tradition of this commission. And if you would look, almost always, I would say there's one that's on the agenda today for the fence, that particular one maybe has a little more of a modern leaning than maybe others. But typically we tend to be happy with things that are copied. So,
Well, this is not a contemporary design. This is a historic knockoff to me.
right. But so would be, I felt like that the comments from the staff were saying that it needed to be more similar to houses on the street.
Well, I don't know. I don't think I really agree with that as much as it needs to be contemporary and not, because there are other houses in Crown Heights that are Art Deco style. I know one on Chartel, and it's the same kind of style. And to me, it's another imitation of a style. So I understand what you're saying, Joe, but I don't see this as being a good representation of a contemporary style or a contrast with the surrounding neighborhood.
So
You're muted,
Final
Joe.
word would be that I think it follows the guidelines just as well as a quote fake Tudor revival, that it would be even.
Well, I don't disagree with that. I'm just saying it doesn't, to me.
But whether we like it or not, I'm not saying it would be my first choice, but I think that it follows the guidelines.
Okay, well, I said my piece.
Mr. Smith, did you have a question for the commission?
no, well, no, I was just gonna chime in. I mean, kind of, as every time I've come in front of you guys, I mean, that's kind of, especially living in the neighborhood. I mean, that's kind of what we had went around and we had drawn up a Tudor revival that, similar to what would be, what was there, and drove around and kind of pointed out the exact ones that you can tell were built, in the 90s. And I think it was probably the 90s that were the last ones built, but they just stuck out so badly to me that I just was trying to, come up with something that would have fit in the neighborhood. And, obviously it's going to, stick out, but wanted to try to do something just a little bit different in the guidelines, and try to make something that's very prevalent and very sought after as well, as a style of a house that a lot of people tend to like.
Thank you. Do we have a representative from the neighborhood association that wishes to speak?
You do, Mr. Chairman. It's Brian Davis. Good afternoon to you and to the commissioners. My name is Brian Davis. I live at 905 Northwest 41st Street, and I'm with you today representing the Crown Heights Edgemere Heights Neighborhood Association. As we're in the early stages of the process, and we're only just now starting to hear from the community about this, I can keep this simple today. Our association's board agrees with the staff's recommendation that additional information is required, along with guidance from the commission as to the proposed design for this residence. And to the extent that anyone might desire our input, we'd be happy to participate in the process. And I thank you.
Perfect. So, Mr. Smith, have you and the neighborhood association, have you visited with them yet? And how have those conversations been going along?
No, I have not spoke with anyone from the neighborhood association.
Okay.
I mean, they feel free to reach out and discuss that.
Sure.
I'm a part of it, so.
Perfect. Okay, any other questions from commissioners on this particular project?
Besides the general discussion we just had, I think it fills up too much of the site. I don't know what the percentage is, but there is no backyard left. I know that's one thing we're trying to look for. So is there a calculation or anything of the site area, Katie?
I am not sure that I don't think we have an official calculation of the percentage of the site that remains open space. Typically, if you have a front yard, you can fairly easily meet that requirement. Although this does appear to project fairly far into the front yard and forward of structures to either side of it. So they may be getting pretty close to that threshold. But yes, I think in general, that was one of staff's main concerns, is that you have continuous structure from the build-to line all the way back to the rear of the garage, pretty much. And I don't know if the applicant has looked at calculating percentage of the lot that's covered versus remaining open space at this point.
When you say the back to the rear of the garage, the actual structure actually stops before the property directly to the east. It actually lines up, and the structure actually stops prior to the structure next door. If that was your question there, I don't know the actual percentage of that. I mean, I'm sure we could calculate that, but I do not know the percentage of the lot that it's covering. Is there a certain threshold or a number that's supposed to be to meet guidelines? That's supposed to be under or around, or?
It's not a number that's in the HP guidelines or ordinance. I believe it's part of the building permit review process, that you're supposed to have a certain percentage of open space.
Yes, and if it's as far as building code, yeah, we're under that.
Well, I think it's also just the perception of open space on the site, that there's no backyard left, though your drawing is a little bit deceiving, though, because the covered patio looks like a wall. But still, the back of the house almost touches the garage.
Yes, it definitely goes back to it. Again, we just went back that far just because, the adjoining or the property next door, or both properties next door, not to the left, but the one to the east, actually, it goes past its garage as well. And I guess we could move the garage back.
Well, you can't move it back too much. It's only 5 feet, and there's probably utility easement back there. But it looks like the house to the left on the drawing looks like an add-on. Most of the houses probably are similar to the one on the right. So the house really does extend very far back on the side, more than I think others on the block, I'm sure.
So is that something, would we be supposed to mimic the non-add-on properties on the street? I guess I just assumed that an addition would be.
Well, it's supposed to respond to the context, which would kind of keep in mind the building lines of the other houses. Also, on the front, there should be a building line. I don't understand how this could be built so far close to the street. Isn't there a building line? It says 30 feet, but yet all the other houses are set back so much further.
I would have to defer that to the architect on that, as far as what the building line and all that was.
Well, it may be within the building line because it says 30 feet on your drawing.
Sure.
Yet all the other houses are set back quite a bit more, and they're from the front property line, and also, as I just said, set back quite a bit more from the rear property line. So it just seems like a big footprint for the context.
I mean, do the guidelines not address having the houses on either side be similar setbacks? Katie?
The guidelines do talk about aligning with setbacks of surrounding properties. I'm looking for that specific wording to give you.
I would think that it would be important for this project to, you know, have the same setback as its neighbors.
Yes, so the very first guideline for new construction is that new buildings must follow historic setback patterns of the street. Should be consistent in historical patterns of development for the property, block, and district. So we usually look, if we have a block with uniform setbacks, we expect new construction to align with those setbacks. If we have a block where the setbacks are varied, we would want new construction to fall within the range of setbacks along the block and not protrude forward of other structures on the block.
Right.
And then as far as the language about being consistent with historical patterns of development, as well as other language in the guidelines, we do look at the overall massing of the structure, the way that the house and the garage sit on the property, and look for that to be not uniform, but consistent with with the surrounding area.
And Joel, the architect, is actually on this call, and he's texting me here saying that it lines up exactly with the front of the rest of the neighboring structures.
Well, your site plan doesn't show that.
If you want to, I don't know if you want to unmute him or not, but.
Hello, this is Rebecca Thompson. I work for Joel Collins, and I've worked with Mr. Smith. The site plan that you're looking at is based on what information I could get of the neighboring properties, and I believe there should be a notation that says all dimensions are estimated and should be field verified. Therefore, the setbacks of those neighboring houses are not necessarily exact and should be checked. But I believe that our work was intended to be lined up. This may be a drafting error as far as not having the exact plot plan of neighboring homes.
Well, this needs to be confirmed and resubmitted. I mean, it's not just 2-3 feet. We're talking about quite a bit difference on your drawing. So,
I mean, the others in regard to size. I mean, I understand what you're saying. I do feel like that the majority of the new construction projects that we have approved have been on the larger size for different reasons. It would be probably impossible to build a 1,500 square foot home back in these areas anymore, but we have had several larger ones that were, you know, larger than their neighbors. But on the front, I mean, I would think that, you know, I would still try to stick with the front and the guidelines, because I still feel like that the majority of the project follows the guidelines.
okay.
So it sounds like we are needing either.
Which plot are you actually looking at? Is that on your shared screen, or which plot are you actually looking at?
This is in the attachments to the staff report, and it is, let me see if I can get to the, this is Katie speaking. Sorry, it's labeled page 1.01 site plan, and it shows the site plan for the property and then the site plan, a rough site plan for the structures to either side of the house. And it shows the proposed structure coming fairly far forward of the buildings to either side. Which if
This
you were to
is
shift
Rebecca.
that back, you know, that's going to affect where the rear of the property lines up and the garage, et cetera.
Yeah, I mean, we completely agree that it needs to conform with that lineup for sure. I mean, if that's off, I don't, you know, what I'm looking at, it's not. So I'm a little bit, I don't see that. So, but yeah, we definitely, I mean, that's a no-brainer. So if the one you have is substantially in front or in front at all, I mean, that's a no-brainer.
Jared, do you not have your site plan P1.01? That's what we're looking at.
Yeah, let me see if I can find it.
Because it really
Sir,
is
we
pretty dramatic. So it may be wrong, but it's pretty dramatic.
I just don't see which attachment it's in.
Okay.
Rebecca, were you trying to answer?
Yes, I'm sorry. I think we've had a little trouble with the muting and things, but what I'm getting communication from our architect, Joel Collins, is that we completely agree on aligning the homes that are on the left and right of this property, and that I'm sending a file right now so that people can see everything. But that this, again, it wasn't an official site plan of those other homes necessarily, but I believe there was work done to ensure that they would be aligned with the actuality of the property, not necessarily the representation. I had just sent the plot plan to Mr. Smith and Mr. Collins to make sure that they have access to that and can comment on what you're looking at also.
Yeah, I found it. The one that's on there, it's substantially in front of. So if that's what it is, I mean, that needs to be reconfigured for sure.
Yeah, I think I'm unmuted now. I apologize. I did not know how to get on the call. This is Joel, and I just got a copy of that as well. And that is I totally agree that we would not want the house to stick out in front of those other houses. So we need to confirm left and right, because I have a previous plot plan that shows everything lined up. So that's something we'd have to confirm and not just guess at right now.
So to me, it sounds like there's some plans that need to be modified. It sounds like some conversation with the neighborhood associations needs to be had. There's certainly demolition of the garage. To me, that seems like something we might be able to approve today, but it sounds like some of the other things might require a continuance. Do we have any questions on the demolition piece of this?
I do have a question. The house is still there, is that right?
No, it's been demolished.
So it is gone. It was approved and it's been demolished. Okay.
Correct.
The photograph shows it existing there, so.
Yeah, I think that was from the previous.
Okay.
So from a commission standpoint,
I mean, are we ready to make a motion to demolish the garage?
I am certainly comfortable with
I'll
that.
make a motion for HPCA 200070, item 5, to demolish the garage. I'm sorry, I can't, I don't know how to really read the other or read thing at the same time, and I don't have a copy. So, but I'll say with findings from staff. That's all I can tell you.
I'll second that.
Okay, item number 5, moved by Joe Meacham, seconded by Alan Brown. All in favor, please vote. Okay, that motion is passed. The garage is approved for demolition.
I mean, I would be happy to make a motion to continue the other items. Do we have something that we want to put as specific findings or guidance for the requirements for the applicant to be attached to that, or?
Yeah, I mean,
We
we
don't
want to appease, obviously the neighborhood and you guys on that. So, any suggestions or any, findings that we need to do, we're more than happy to do so. So if you could just, any guidance would be, well received.
Since you've already heard that there's differences of opinions, I would think that maybe in the end that me personally, I would want to also make the neighborhood happy. So maybe meeting with the neighborhood and coming back with some kind of agreement or direction from them. It would make it easier perhaps for everybody on the commission to go forward with their whatever. I mean, I'll make a motion to continue items 2 and 6 for HPCA 200070 to allow the applicant to meet with whatever Crown Heights deems as official representatives of their design review committee, and then maybe come back with changes that would be appropriate.
I would second that. Exactly. Thank you.
Also, I'd like to suggest that we insert in there to confirm the setbacks.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll do that for sure.
Mr. Smith, we can continue this to the August 5th meeting, which would require you to have new documentation to staff by this coming Tuesday, the 7th, or we can continue to the September 2nd meeting.
We needed to continue to August 5th, but being the holiday weekend, I mean, you said is that Tuesday?
Yeah, we could probably give you a little extra time with the holiday in there.
Okay.
And I'm sure if you come back with revised, well, I don't know, it's going to be tough to get that done and meet with the neighborhood
Right.
Over a holiday weekend.
That would be difficult, I think, to meet with the neighborhood and then try to get those
Agree to
changes.
plans and all of that.
Is that documentation on that Tuesday? Is that documentation from the neighborhood, or is that documentation that we're needing and then the meeting with the neighborhood would come later?
That would be any revised documentation that you want to present to the commission, that you want to go into your staff report.
Is the representative still on the call, or?
Yeah, Jared, it's Brian Davis. I'm still here.
Okay, yeah, Brian. Is that even fathomable?
I think especially with the holiday, that's moving pretty quick.
Yeah, I just don't.
I want to make this as easy on you guys as we can too.
For sure.
I mean, I recognize, your desire to get this thing going. So, but I just don't think we can move that fast.
I mean, Katie, is like maybe next Friday possible, or is that just opening up a different?
So looking at the calendar, I think by the end of next week, Friday the 10th, Angela will yell at me as soon as this call is over, but I think that is workable for us, given that you're trying to meet with the neighborhood, but I think that's still going to be awfully tight to get a meeting with neighbors and to confirm setback, et cetera, and get revised drawings done. But
and it sounds like they've already.
Worst comes to worst, we get to August and you have one more continuance left.
I might say that I feel like, Jared, it would not be a problem, verifying the setbacks, getting the drawing design documentation, remedied for next week, no problem. I think it would just fall back to what sort of information from the neighborhood do you need to provide, and could that maybe not necessarily be by that Friday? Could it be just in time for the meeting or a week before, something like that? I'm not sure what kind of documentation you're going to provide after you meet with them. But we can get our part done by next week, so you don't have to wait another month.
Sure. And I'm not sure what documentation I'm providing as well. So maybe some clarification that maybe just, I assume you're just wanting me to meet and have a correlation or an agreement, for them to approve what would be there or approve some sort of design.
If I may, Jared, if I could just suggest that you and I just have a conversation, and I'm covered up the rest of the day, but I'm free tomorrow and Friday, but maybe we could talk first thing tomorrow. And
yeah, that would be great.
Offline and then that way we don't have to top the commission's time, but you and I can get on a timetable that I can get a group together and we'll get this thing going.
Okay, that'd be great.
Okay, thanks.
So we'll continue items, let's see, 2 and 6 to August 5th. Is that what I think we've come to agree on?
Yes, I'm good with that.
Okay, so we had a motion by Joe Meacham, a second by John Milner. All in favor, please vote on PrimeGov. Okay, the continuance has passed. We'll move this to the August 5th meeting. We'll move on to the next case and invite Mr. Phillip as well. Thanks, Jared.
Commissioner Fudge?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
I just need to let you know at this time I have to leave the meeting, but I just want to make sure that we had to move that because of me, but I think you guys have quorum the rest of the day with Klaus coming back, correct?
I believe
Yes,
so.
we have quorum for the rest of the meeting. Thank you very much, John.
Thank you guys for
Thanks, John.
putting the schedule for me, and everybody have a great 4th of July weekend. Thank you.
Too. Okay. We'll move back to our agenda. We are now looking at HPCA 1900037 at 600 Northwest 16th Street.
This is located in the Mesa Park Historic District, Ward 6, consideration and possible action on application by Jeremy Gardner, Gardner Architects, for David Burnett. And we actually have, in between when this application initially started and now the property has actually changed hands, we have the new owner on the call with us today. Danae Grace is on the call, I believe, for certificate of appropriateness to 9 request revisions to the following items: install fence elective, and 2 to construct house and attached garage elective. I won't read through the entire list of all the items to be revised, but can summarize as changes to windows and doors and replacement of a fence that initially was intended to be kept and repaired. I will note that in the staff report it says that the fence is 8 feet at the rear, and they are actually proposing or revised it to propose a 6-foot fence where they are replacing it at the rear and side of the property.
Well, Danae, can you tell us about your project, please?
Hi, this is Danae Grace. I'm actually going to defer to our architect, Sarah, who is on the line and will be able to present our proposed changes.
Perfect.
This is Sarah Hanna with Gardner Architects, and we also have Jeremy Gardner on the call with us today. We are, if you all are familiar with the project, the intent has generally stayed the same, but with the new owner, there have been kind of a small handful of changes that are desired to meet a budget, but also function some of the new needs of a new client. Those being some general locations of windows, addition and movement of those windows. But I think kind of our other point today is the fencing. So previously there was a mixture of a few fence materials that existed on the south edge of the property. But as those 2 lots were split, the property boundary changed a little bit. And so this new owner is choosing to fence in more area of their property than the previous owner had desired to. I'll also add that they have worked with the adjacent property owner to the south to help define where that boundary needs to be, and had a number of conversations with them to make sure that they are satisfied with the approach as well.
This is Katie. I'll just add that it was mentioned the last time that this was on that people would appreciate including attachments from the original certificate of appropriateness for comparison with the windows. And that is at the end of your attachments for this staff report, starting on page 32 of the PDF of the staff report.
So, Katie, on your recommendation, I was trying to follow this. I don't see a recommendation on the house. Is that you're requesting continuing it or recommending?
The recommendation was to approve the revision as one item, essentially.
Okay.
Item 9 is the revision with some conditions regarding the fence and site plan. To some extent, they have met those. It's still a very tall fence and retaining wall combination at a corner property. So even with the reduction of the fence to 6 feet in height, it's still a solid fence. And so we wanted to make sure the commission looked at that carefully and determined that that was appropriate to keep that configuration. But just to conclude that thought, there were no real concerns from staff with the other proposed changes, such as the windows and doors.
I'm sorry, it's really hard to look at all these things at once on a computer screen, so I'm flipping back and forth between the drawings and.
I agree. Katie, do we have, I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time seeing everything, but is there a drawing of where the fence will be? I guess totally, I can't look on computer and whatever. Anyway, next time I'm printing the whole thing.
You're certainly in new territory with the with all electronics, that's for sure.
Let's see. There is a site plan. It is A111 in your attachments, and it's page 4 of the attachments. Jennifer or Cameron, am I able to share my screen and share that that's in the PDF?
You should have access at the bottom. There should be a share screen option.
That would be great. Yay.
Okay, can you all see that?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is what was existing on the left, and then in blue is where it's proposed on the right. Since the last meeting, the applicant did pull the fence in toward the east to get some more spacing between the historic carriage house that is their property to the south and their fence line, so that the fence would not be so close to that structure. And then they reduced the height to 6 feet throughout.
Katie, do you have an elevation of what the fence is going to look like?
The fence is going to match the existing fence that is there.
Well, there's a combination. I mean, brick, concrete. There's all sorts of stuff.
Oh, it'll match the wood fence panels that are there now.
And it won't be any higher than those.
So that fence, the applicant went out and measured, and it is a variety of different heights. in different locations. They will not exceed 6 feet when they install new fencing. And Sarah, correct me if I'm stating that inaccurately.
No, that's correct. And I'm just going to pull up actually those references of exact heights, but the current fence, the shortest height that's there is 6'6", and then the tallest is 7 feet 6 inches. So as Katie said, anything new would be at 6 feet.
And currently the fence is all the way to the corner, basically on both sides. It'll be set back significantly further though, because the house will be built there as well, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. I'll just say, I still do not feel comfortable without an elevation of what would be the east side of the entire property showing I guess it's a retaining wall, correct? Or fence, or, I mean, we can't see on the inside. I'm just have all these pictures of, I mean, we're looking at the corner of the property. Are we going to be able, I don't know. I don't have enough information. You see the house, the fence, I don't know. Does anybody know exactly what it's going to look like? Because I don't see a drawing of a fence on the drawings. I see floor plans and then I see elevations. If you look on the A311, that's the east elevation. So could you maybe describe that right there? I don't know.
Sure, I'll jump in just a second. So the building elevations, I think primarily we're trying to illustrate the building. So I could see how there could be some confusion with fencing.
I mean, are you showing the fencing in front of the house, or when the fencing is up, will it cover another 6 feet up?
No, there will not be fencing that covers the front of the house.
Okay,
it will
but on
only be
the east elevation.
Yes, you'll have fencing from where the new entry drive enters off of Dewey south to the south edge of the property and around the south. And we had in a previous submission, which it doesn't look like is included in this report, but we had submitted some renderings from that corner view that I think would help to illustrate that condition. And if it's possible, we can provide that to you guys after the fact.
And it looks like to me, maybe this will help clarify, but you showed some dash lines on that kind of window or those patio doors coming out on that 311 east elevation. So it appears to me that you're showing the top of that fence as that solid line, and then to kind of show what happens behind the fence, you've got those dash lines. So it seems like we kind of have an idea of it. I mean, it cuts off, of course, but correct me if I'm wrong, but it looks like that kind of shows that fence condition.
Yes, that's correct. And if it's possible, Katie, I don't know if you can share that rendering view of the corner if we are able at this point in time.
I don't think I can share that because it wasn't included in the materials that were published for the meeting.
Okay.
So on the photograph that we're looking at, if you look at that black post, basically the fence is going to start maybe 20 yards to the left of that particular, is that where it starts and then runs to the back of the property line?
Can you clarify which photo you're referring to at this point in time?
It's the northeast corner of the lot. It's the one that's on the Zoom meeting screen right now.
Oh, sorry, I'm on so I didn't see. Yeah, but I see the image you're looking at.
I would suggest that I don't mind approving the rest, or making a motion to approve the revisions for the house, but could you all bring back something that clearly shows what the fence is going to look like at the next meeting? I don't feel like I personally, I don't feel like I have enough to vote on that particular one. The revisions to the house, I understand those. I looked at all of those, but is that something that you would?
Yeah, we can definitely provide some additional clarification. And I don't know if it's possible to do that sort of on a conditional approval or with the staff, or if we need to push that to another meeting. But I will say that kind of everything that's happening along the east and north boundaries of the property and the west boundary of the property has already been approved in previous meetings. And so the only thing that we're requesting any change of now is on the south boundary of the property.
That's what I was just going to say, is that the fencing along here on the side of the house, I'm sorry that it's not depicted accurately in what you've been given today, but that's not actually proposed at this time. It was addressed in the original CA for the construction of the house, so we didn't include anything about that. The only portion of the fencing that is being proposed to change from the original CA right now is the rear fence along that south property line where it jogs around the carriage house. And
is that visible from the street or anything, Katie, or is that?
So it is. If we can scroll through the PowerPoint a little bit, and Cameron, I'll tell you when to stop. So this is, if you look at this PowerPoint, this is the yeah. So the fence is at that gate. You can see the fence up above it. In the yard. So it's sitting kind of on top of that retaining wall and then jogs back to go behind that gate set within the backyard. If you go back to the next one that shows the gate straight on, it will be back behind that fence, kind of like where you see that hedge.
I guess I feel like we're not going to see much of the fence, and I'm certainly comfortable with the 6-foot fence, but I also want to make sure that my fellow commissioners are comfortable with what they're approving as well. So I think if we need some sort of documentation or additional information, I think that's probably what we would request.
I mean, my confusion is just that we have all of these pictures of the side, all of the photographs, and basically you're saying that none of the photographs show where the fence is going to be except for that one little piece. If that's it, then I'm okay. I thought that, you know, because you showed all of these pictures, I'm assuming that they had to do something with the fence that's proposed. But if none of these pictures actually show where the fence would be. Is that correct? The photographs?
Right. That was just kind of, it's a difficult property to photograph because of the fence and the walls that are there. So we were just kind of using the photos that we've had all along to give you the full view of the property.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry that caused confusion. It's really just that rear portion that's being altered.
Then let me ask you a question. I know it's an unusual property. Are you saying that half of this long thing, so behind them, their neighbor to the south, how tall will the fence and the retaining wall be at the north end of the other person's property? Just as a question.
My understanding is that the fence within the yard would be 6 feet. If you're measuring from the street, including the retaining wall and the ultimate height of the fence, that height's going to vary as you go down the block with the height of the retaining wall. But in the yard, from the ground up, it would be 6 feet.
Okay. I mean, I'm happy to go ahead and make a motion to approve if Katie feels like that she has all of the information required.
I do. I think we have what we need.
Perfect.
Okay, I would make a motion to approve HPCA 19-00037 with the specific findings noted by staff in the staff report. Were there any, unique circumstances or conditions that you included, Katie?
We included a condition basically rolled over from the last time that they provide site plan and fence documentation illustrating any revisions specified by the commission. But I think we can just strike that if you
Okay.
are comfortable with what's there.
Okay. That's my motion.
Okay, do we have a second?
Oh, second.
Moved by Joe Meacham, seconded by Alan Brown. All in favor, please vote in PrimeGov.
Oh, I'm sorry. We should probably call for if there was anyone from the public that wanted to speak. I apologize.
Apologies. Do we have any citizens that wish to be heard? Hearing none. Moved by Joe Meacham, seconded by Alan Brown. All in favor, please vote in PrimeGov. Excellent. Motion passes. The project is approved. Thank you, Danae. Okay, moving on to HPCA 20-00014 at 1700 North Robinson.
This is located in the Heritage Hills East Historic District, Ward 6. Consideration and possible action on application by OPM Realty to 1, install CAN LED lights at 3rd story soffit elective. This is an application that the commission has seen twice previously. So at this meeting, we have to either approve or deny the application. Staff has not received any additional communication from the applicant since the last time this application was heard. And at this point, we have recommended denial.
Okay. Do we have the applicant that wishes to be heard on this particular project? Any other citizens that wish to be heard, or the neighborhood association? Okay, to me, this one seems pretty straightforward.
This is Rat, Heritage Hills, 119 Northwest 19th Street. We're opposed to any canned lights in the area. The commission has refused these in the past. We don't want to set a precedent starting these, and we would ask for denial with prejudice.
Thank you. Any other citizens that wish to be heard? Okay. Do we have any comments from commissioners?
I'll make a motion if everyone's ready.
Yep.
All right, I'll make a motion to deny HPCA with prejudice 20-00014, item 1, with the specific findings as noted in the staff report.
Okay.
Second.
Moved by Klaus Freiman Phillip, seconded by Alan Brown. All in favor of the denial, please vote in PrimeGov. Okay, motion passes. Item is denied with prejudice. Thank you. Moving on to HPCA 20-00050 at 511 Northwest 17th Street.
This is in the Heritage Hills Historic District, Ward 6. Consideration and possible action on application by Alan and Angela Smith to 1, construct garage elective, and 2, pour parking elective. And I want to correct, I believe this is actually Mesta Park at 511 Northwest 17th.
Okay, do we have, go ahead.
I was just going to say the commission has seen this once previously. This is a replacement of a non-historic garage where we have already approved the demolition, and the applicant has returned with some revisions to the, or no, I'm sorry, I'm confusing this with another property also on 17th Street. We have seen this one previously. Also, this is construction of a garage. Previously, we heard a request for a recommendation of a variance for returning the primary structure to a duplex. And that was approved by Board of Adjustment. There's been some back and forth with the applicant, Board of Adjustment staff, HP staff on whether or not they could make a garage apartment. At this time, they are not proposing a garage apartment, and they are not requesting a variance for an apartment. They are proposing to build the structure as illustrated in their plan submitted to the commission.
Are the applicants present?
Yes.
Great.
Alan and Angela Smith.
Perfect. Talk to us a little bit about your revisions and your plans for the project.
Okay, first of all, I'd just like to say publicly thank you to Katie and Angela and Cindy for guiding us through this process. We've had so many questions and they have been wonderful to help us. So I really appreciate them. Thanks, you guys. The only other thing I'd like to clarify is we are still asking for a finished room above the garage, but it will not be for rent and it will not be a permanent residence. It'll just be a room and a bathroom.
Okay.
I think that's all I have to say about it for now.
Perfect.
Okay.
Any commissioners with questions or any citizens that wish to be heard on this particular project?
Yes.
You're muted, Joe.
We can't read your lips, Joe.
You received the packet from staff. What about their comments that they gave? This is to the owner.
What comments in particular? There were quite a few.
Quite a few. I mean, did any of those comments, are you willing to make any changes based on the comments that staff provided?
Sure, and that's what most of the conversation with Angela and Katie have been about. The size, we realized that it's 50 square feet over. In looking online at required garage sizes and the size of our vehicles, the required width we have a large truck and a medium-sized SUV. And so the required width for that is 20, really adds up to about 20 foot, 8 inches. And we've asked for 20 foot. So that, it makes it a little tight on the doors opening, but we can work with that. As far as the length, we would need 19 foot 6 inches, and we've asked for 25 feet. So that gives us a little bit of space, pulling in at the front of the vehicles and at the end of the vehicle. So that's why we went with the 500 square feet instead of the 450. However, it was also mentioned in the comments that the majority of the buildings that abut our property all around us are all larger than 500 square feet.
Okay, so what about in regards to the dormer?
The dormers, that was the other one I was going to bring up. We're very flexible on that. The dormer is actually just to provide space in the room, the room above. The way the building faces, the dormer looks at the side of the garage of our neighbors. So it doesn't look into anybody's yard. It doesn't overlook our other neighbor's pool. It literally just looks at the side of the neighbor's garage.
I think the concern was maybe more for just the design, in that it's not, a traditional look there.
I spoke with Tim. Tim, I think Tim might be on also, Tim Farmer, the architect. And we spoke with him about the difference between the hip, and I asked him if it could look more like the hip on our house. And I think there was a reason why it could not.
Mm-hmm.
Tim, are you here? Is he?
I would just say that, that particular dormer and the size of that dormer and it's just not a traditional garage design.
Right. It originally started out with 2 smaller dormers. And I believe that Tim and Angela had some conversation that the 2 smaller dormers weren't right either. So I don't know what to do next, really. We're open for suggestions. I mean, if anybody has one.
I think 2 dormers would be better than the 3. It's pretty out of scale, and maybe not quite so tall. They just look very big.
Angela, does Angela remember why the 2 dormers were not correct?
We started out with 3 dormers rather than 2.
Okay.
They were gable ends that rose to the peak of the roof of the proposed garage and felt somewhat awkward. The proposed large solitary dormer at this time also reaches all the way to the peak of the roof of the proposed garage and may also be somewhat awkward. Neither option has appeared to be exactly right for the garage, but that is.
I agree with you, Angela. I would say the part that is unusual to me is that the peak, that the roof of the dormer meets the peak of the roof, and it traditionally would not somehow. I'm not really. There's different ways that you could do it, but just that having that flat roof dormer that meets at the peak is, I don't know. It's unusual. It's not. I just don't feel like. I mean, I would go with something different. Alan, what's your thought?
Well, it just seems out of scale. The windows are huge. I don't know. I think they ought to be smaller and not takes up so much of the wall. I would make them, I think 2, or maybe group them in the middle or something. But this to me doesn't seems out of scale.
What would you think about the dormers not being on the side that they are proposed on, and it being on the end that the north view end where the garage doors are? Well, no, because the roof doesn't. Never mind. The roof doesn't face that way. Sorry. That won't work.
I think it's always a problem to try to do something that's like, it's that asymmetrical look on the side, and then plus it's disconcerting. I don't know.
Well, the only other thing that was mentioned in the comments is that the house is so large that you're not going to see any of it from the street.
I mean, that is a point. I kind of second. I think Joe kind of hit on what it is. It just doesn't look right. I think partly it's, you know, if you're going to do something asymmetric, I think that can be interesting if it's executed, you know, correctly. And I think the scale of the dormer in conjunction with it being asymmetric, you know, the whole, it just kind of feels a little bit off. I agree with the fact, I mean, it is tucked away behind the house, so you wouldn't necessarily see it from the house, but maybe Alan was kind of alluding to this. If you had 2 smaller dormers, and of course you would have one on the side that would be more visible potentially from the street. Although I believe, looking at the site plan, that the house, the garage is kind of tucked away behind the house a little bit. But if you had 2 smaller dormers on either side of the roof, then you wouldn't have to have 1 big dormer potentially.
Is that something that can be administratively approved, just as a detail?
No, staff would not administratively approve that.
Is that something, this is Alan Smith. I just have just a question on it. So Angela, is Angela on here?
Yes.
Angela, if we, and I assume probably, and commissioners, you can probably, but if it's approved from the HP office, is that something that, you know, I mean, it's, if they feel it's okay, do you guys kind of go with them a lot? So
They
if
are
we,
the HPO.
well, I'm just, but I mean, if if they tell us, because I know that Angela's saying, yeah, this isn't working quite right. So I just want to make sure, because we are definitely willing to work with them to get it correct. I just want to make sure that, once they say, hey, I think this will actually work, what do you guys think? So
I think we're just a little stumped right now on what correct is.
Yeah.
Well, it's a subjective thing, but I don't mind the dormer. It's kind of hidden by the house. I just object to the huge windows up there. I don't understand why.
So the same dormer with smaller windows? Is that what you're suggesting?
That's what I'm suggesting.
Yeah,
that's easy enough.
I could definitely do that. What do the rest of you guys think?
Honestly, this one doesn't bug me as much because it is, those dormers, no one's ever going to see that back dormer because it is so far behind that 2-story house. So, if that makes Alan happy, I think I could go with that.
Well, I just really not a big deal, but you're asking opinion. I just think it seems like a totally, there's no other windows, and there's 3 huge windows in this dormer. It just doesn't seem to make sense. But as a dormer itself, I don't object to the dormer itself.
Right. I mean, that's fine. I feel like that when it's done and you look up and you see it, you're going to go, that's weird. But, so that just makes me think it's not the best design.
I don't want it to be weird.
Well, I really think that in my opinion, I mean, they're both saying, well, nobody will see it, so it's okay. I mean, if I were you, I would work out something. I would rather see maybe 2 small dormers. The worst thing I think is it hits the peak. I don't know if that's so that you have some kind of headroom, if that's what you all are thinking, that you could have some headroom there. I'm sorry.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Right. And I think that, and that's what it kind of looks like. And it's just awkward, in my opinion, to have that meet at the top. If you look at the front of your, if you want to do a dormer that looks like the one at the front of your house, on either side, maybe. Then,
and I asked about that, and he said because of the way the roof was, it would stick up above the roof line, and it would not be proportionate.
So, I think it's difficult to get headroom without looking awkward, but anyway, I don't know. Alan and they're saying that they think it's okay. So with smaller windows.
Well, I'll be honest. What I would really like is a building that looks just like my house with the same kind of roof, but I can't have a 2-story back there. So we're trying to be creative.
Right.
Well, there's a lot of things you could do. You could do a gable dormer on it instead of a shed that would look more like the front. There's other things you can do besides 2-story. Depends on how much headroom.
The previous dormers. I'm sorry.
How much headroom you want to have up there. What are you going to use? Is it storage or what? What's
no, it's going to be, it's just going to be a room where someone could, where I could put a bed and someone could spend the night.
Oh.
Yeah, it's not going to be an apartment. It's not going to be for rent. It's just going to be like an extra bedroom now.
How do we feel about the size of the garage? I know it says minimally exceeds the maximum recommended garage. Yeah, I know that it appears to kind of fit in with some of the other garages around the space, but how do we feel about that?
I think the size is fine. I didn't really understand how much are you adding more concrete in the back?
That's been another discussion. If you look at the drawing number 2, is the desired placement we actually submitted to, but we prefer number 2. And so it does kind of jaunt the driveway off to the left a little bit. And we have talked about the difference between a permeable product, like doing a brick driveway or something that would allow for drainage versus a concrete driveway. And so I think that is still being discussed between the office and I.
Because it seems like we generally don't really allow additional parking areas in the back off of the driveway.
It's not really additional parking. It's just actually to allow us to drive into the garage where it just extends the driveway so that we can drive into the garage doors the way it is facing.
Well, what you've done here is move the garage offset so you can park 2 cars to the side as well
in
as
the original driveway. Are you, if you're looking at drawing number 2?
I'm looking at number 2.
Yes, okay.
The garage is moved offset to the left. Is that where the existing, the previous garage was?
No, the previous garage was way in the right corner, I believe.
Yeah, so typically we like the garage to be in the same place.
Well, our
Could be-
neighbors
could-
didn't really
could
like
be-
that because they have a pool and they didn't want that building right next to their pool. So we tried to.
Well, let me finish. So what you've done is move the offset so you can have 2 cars parked next to it, 2 cars parked inside the garage, plus a lot of concrete in front of the new garage and very little backyard.
We left at least 50% grass back there, and that's what number 2 also allows because it still has grass all the way on the left side and around the front at the very back of the house.
Well, the garage in the center of the yard with a little strip to the side doesn't seem to be a good site plan to me. Plus, typically we'd want them in the same place as the historic garage. So I'm not in favor of the additional paving. I know what you want is more parking back there, but I don't think that's, to me, not appropriate.
Well, the other reason was it's a little difficult to get in and turn around and drive back out. I mean, when it's right there at the end of the driveway, it doesn't give much room we have a very narrow driveway with our neighbors' air conditioning units sitting pretty much in our driveway. And so you really have to turn around and drive out forwards just to be safe, and backing out is very difficult.
So you're trying to create a place to turn around a vehicle in your backyard and come out head first?
We're just trying to make it be functional and look good.
You're trying to turn a car around in your backyard and come out head first. Is that correct?
And you can. I mean, we've been doing it since we've been living here. But currently we have to pull into the grass to turn around and back up and drive out forward.
You realize that's not normal in historic houses to be able to turn around behind your house. Most people back out.
Well, I mean, it's what was here. The majority of it was what was here when we bought it.
So you want to make it even wider, so you make it even easier to turn around. Yeah. I still don't think it's appropriate.
So pretty much what we probably should do is just go ahead and try to get it set up on the where it's actually at then. But so that would site plan. I mean, like the actual plan for the garage itself is good. Fixing the dormer and everything. So we definitely need to fix the dormer, get it correct. But there's not really an issue with it being on that side if we put it right where the concrete already is then.
I think that would be more appropriate.
Okay.
I guess I'm just confused because when we came to the first meeting, we had it all the way to the left and they said that was fine, except that we probably needed to move it out of the easement. So we asked for a variance at that time to go and make that happen.
I'm not aware of that, but maybe could be true. Is that, Kate, is that true that we did that?
Or we just asked for a continuance. Sorry, I used the wrong word.
I'm afraid I'd have to listen back to the meeting. We see numerous garages each time, and I don't recall specifically the discussion last time on which side of the yard was appropriate.
Garages are
we just asked for a continuance because it was very evident that it was sitting in the easement and that was going to be an issue. But
well, I'm sorry, I don't remember the discussion, but if it was shown like this with additional concrete paving on the opposite side of the yard of the historic garage, I can't imagine we would be in favor of that, but that's just me.
So, is it possible just to go ahead and get a continuance to next month, and we'll keep working on it and see if we can get it, where it's right. I mean, we definitely want to make sure it's right. So I know one of the issues that we had was obviously an issue with one of the neighbors, didn't want it and all that kind of stuff. And we were trying to appease them as well. So, I mean, I think we can probably figure out how to build it there. If we build it on the existing concrete, we just need to go back, and obviously we need to fix the dormer. So we'll go back and fix that, and then just plan it out for where you're talking about there.
Well, those are my comments. What does everybody else think? I was reading the staff report. I don't see much about relocating it or the extra additional paving.
I agree with you, Alan.
Yeah, I do too. I think having the garage in the middle of the back of the yard is a kind of a strange place to have it, having it, offset. I think having it on the right side is the most appropriate. Having it offset to the left, probably not a great option because of the easements and all of that. To me, it seems to make sense to have it more to the right. That'd give you a better, better yard to play in back there too. And that would be nice in my opinion. Less concrete.
I do think that if the garage is relocated to its presumed historic location, that the proposal for the dormer is going to be, it will need to be much more elegantly described to some extent, because it will become visible.
Be more visible, yes.
And I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
So I would make a motion to continue HPCA 20-00050 to the, what was it? August 5th meeting?
Joe,
August 5th or September 2nd.
Before we go there, are there any other citizens or neighborhood folks that want to be heard as well? Okay, sorry, go ahead, Joe.
I'm not sure that Tim will be able to provide a new illustration by Tuesday. Do you think so, Angela?
No, I don't think we'll be able to have that. So do we need to do it to the following month? Because, so what you're saying is the new, illustration is going to have to be to you by Tuesday. Yeah, I don't think he's going to be able to make that happen. So we probably need to put it for another month.
Okay.
Then the next available meeting is going to be September 2nd.
September 2nd. Okay.
Second.
Okay, the continuance is moved by Mary Jo Meacham, second by Alan Brown. All in favor, please vote in PrimeGov. Okay, the continuance is passed. We'll move this to the September 2nd meeting. Appreciate the kind words about Katie and Angela, and thank you guys for working with us on the project.
Thank you, appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Okay, moving on to item number 5, HPCA 20-00075 at 500 Northwest 17th Street.
This is in Mesta Park Historic District, Ward 6, consideration and possible action on application by CR Homes LLC to 5 construct 2-story garage elective. See, this is why I was confused. We have 2 on the same block. And this is one that the commission has also seen previously. We've previously approved the demolition of a non-historic garage at this property and asked for some revisions to the proposed design, as well as additional information about the height of surrounding garages. And the applicant's back today to present those revisions and that additional information.
Excellent. Do we have the applicant present?
Yes, sorry, just had to unmute, sorry.
Perfect. Can you talk to us about the revisions on the garage, please?
Yes, so the first thing that you wanted to see changed was we had a pergola structure off of the garage facing the north towards the back of the historic structure that you wanted removed and moved over to the west side, which was changed. And then the other item of note was a height elevation in comparison to the detached historic garage, I think that was built in the 40s to the south of us. And we submitted those pictures, and you can see the yellow siding next to the existing garage. That is what we have put forth in a new elevation that was submitted, that I think you have pictures of, or that is part of the attachments on the agenda management page. Angela or Katie could probably maybe answer that.
Yes, it's in the attachments. It's kind of a rendering, the color image
Mm-hmm, that one.
of the house and the garage, and then the neighboring garage to the south.
It's a wide view of the existing garage to the south, what we are proposing to do, and then to the far right, the existing historic structure.
Okay, I think I'm looking at it. So the adjacent garage is a yellow color?
Correct.
Yeah, and yours is all blue.
Yes.
Yeah, so it looks like it's similar, maybe a little taller. What would you say?
I think the one, because they're uphill, they may be a shorter structure, but I think they're still above us by about a foot, foot and a half. And then as things trend downhill, they kind of stair step their way down.
The main concern I've got just looking at the site plan is the garage is now taller than the house. You know, I feel like it fits in better with the surrounding garages, but it almost now competes with the actual main structure. And that, I don't know, is, you know, back to our conversation a couple seconds ago, it's a little bit weird. I don't know if that's a concern that is shared across the board or not, but curious.
I understand that concern, but it, you know, as far as traditional, you know, rear garage apartments on side streets, I think that in this situation, it does fit with its new neighbor. And, you know, there are instances where, you know, there's 1 story or 1 story and a half houses with 2-story garages, but I think I don't know if I would want it if it was like just in the back, but since it seems to work with the one to the left, maybe.
Okay.
I kind of concur. This does seem to me a kind of a unique situation where you have the two, you know, you kind of have a cluster of 3 of these 2-story garages in back that almost kind of read as one in a way. I think it's kind of a unique condition, and I'm not sure I really, you know, the 2-story garage doesn't really bother me too much, honestly.
Well, I kind of agree, but looking at the elevation, I can't remember, probably because it had the trellis there, but the elevation facing the house is completely blank except for a door. All the other elevations have windows. It seems like the mass would be better if it had a window or two.
I totally agree with that.
I agree.
On which side are you describing?
The elevation facing the house. There's a bedroom upstairs. You could put a window or 2 in there, and there's a closet, probably not. But that side is completely blank, which makes it look more massive.
I think that's the north elevation.
Correct.
Correct. I think that would help a little bit. Besides that, looking at your dimension, it's a little shorter than the one to the south. And you move the trellis, which, you know, I think helps in some ways. But now it's exposed that elevation to be completely blank.
Sure.
And that would be pretty visible from the street. And I mean, I'm a firm believer of having, you know, windows facing streets and avoiding blank walls like that. So I do appreciate. Oh, go.
Is now a good time for me to make a correction to an error on my part, class?
Go for it.
The recommended specific findings of fact have led you to believe that the primary structure is in fact less tall than the proposed garage. But having the digital version blown up on my desk here, I see that the house is actually 27 foot 11 inches rather than 21 11 inches.
That's good.
Yeah, thank you for the clarification. And I appreciate you, Chad Rice, for you know, taking our comments to heart and making the changes that we discussed in the last hearing.
Yes.
What I would suggest, I mean, I'm not one, it's not my house, but you know, you don't want that bedroom to be all windows. I would move the two that are on the east to the north face. And I think the east elevation would be fine because there's a lot of doors and windows on there now.
Okay.
Just a thought.
I would say, I think I'd still like at least maybe one window in that second story because it is, you know, it's clearly a second story and facing the street. I think it'd be nice to have a window there, but yeah,
What I think I can kind of envision with that is, you know, maybe put out of that corner, you could put one on the east and one on the north, but that would still leave you enough wall space for your bed or any other furniture to go against.
That would be okay, probably.
Can we make a motion to approve with those changes to be turned into staff? As stated by the applicant, one on the east and one on the east and one on the north.
I am comfortable with that.
I'm okay with staff approving that.
I am too.
Okay, I would make a motion to approve HPCA 20-00075 with the condition that one window is added to the, was it north side?
North elevation.
North elevation, and one window changed on the east side.
Correct. Yeah, change the double window to a single on the east side.
Okay, change the double window to a single on the east side.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
This is Katie. Can I just, one remaining item that we had in the staff report was that I think we still have some materials and dimensions that are not fully documented. If you could just
right. The
add
second condition would be, I remember that one. The second condition would be that all materials and details required by staff for a final application be submitted.
Do we have a second on that?
Second.
Moved by Joe Meacham, seconded by Alan Brown. All in favor, please vote with PrimeGov. Okay, the motion has been approved with conditions. Thank you very much, Mr. Rice.
Thank you. Talk to you soon.
Okay, moving on to HPCA 20-00083 at 904 Northwest 40th Street.
This is located in the Crown Heights Historic District, Ward 2. Consideration of possible action on application by David DeWitt to item 2, install railings at steps elective, and item 4, replace front door elective, and 5, install pavers along driveway elective. This is a new application. You'll note that we recommended approval for the railings, and that's an item that we see commonly, but we don't have the ability to administratively approve railings where they did not previously exist. So just a little clarification for you all.
Perfect. Is the applicant present? We will ask again, is the applicant present on this particular project? Okay, any citizens that wish to be heard on this particular project? Any questions from my fellow commissioners? To me, the railing seems pretty straightforward. I'm comfortable with that. I guess, quite honestly, I'm pretty comfortable with. I'm comfortable with the pavers as well. The front door is a little more high style than I think we would prefer, but curious what your all's thoughts are.
I don't see the door design in here. I'm scrolling.
It is...
Alan, you probably did what I did earlier. There's a item.
Oh, there it is.
That was administrative. You found it. I
found it. It's a 4-light door, right?
Correct.
Okay. Huh.
I mean, I don't think that the door is allowed, and I don't think that the pavers fit the guidelines. Katie?
Right. The guidelines say that driveways should be concrete unless we have historic precedent for another material. So typically when people want to widen the driveway, we want that to be done with concrete, not with other products or other materials. And similarly, the door doesn't appear to be based on any sort of historic precedent for either this property or surrounding similar properties. With the applicant not present, it may be more efficient to just continue this to the September meeting so that we can have time to, well, we could, if everyone's comfortable with the railing, that could be approved today, but we could continue the remaining items and allow them to respond.
Let me ask a question about the pavers on the edge. Was he proposing to set those in concrete or sand?
I don't believe we know.
Okay, because if it's set in sand, it's removable. Don't we approve that as a landscape? Because I see that done all over the place. They probably don't get approval. True. If it's set in sand, would that make a difference? I never can remember. It seems like we've approved, maybe not in front though.
We have the ability to administratively approve a landscape edging material in the front yard that does not exceed 18 inches in height.
Okay. And if it's set in sand, would that classify as be a landscape element then, you think?
Those features set in sand in the front yard at grade have cyclically been either approved administratively or did not require approval at various times during the ordinance. I don't believe that the current ordinance gives absolute direction on that at this time.
Because if he did that in sand, so they're removable, I would almost prefer that than a brand new driveway.
I can definitely discuss that.
Yeah, it's
not with the applicant.
It's not that bad a driveway. It doesn't seem to be that bad a shape. So, well, I guess on the street there, it's cracked pretty good. Anyhow, so we're going to continue this.
Yeah. Okay, do we have a motion?
Well, I guess I'll move to continue HPCA. Let me get the number here. 20-00083 to the, which one would it be?
September 2nd, I think, so we have time.
To the September 2nd meeting.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Moved by Alan Brown, second by Klaus Freiman Phillip. All in favor, please vote in PrimeGov. Okay, that continuance has been passed. We'll move that to the September 2nd meeting to give Angela some time to visit with the applicant. Okay, last item in our cases for individual consideration, item number HPCA 20000093 at 2133 Northwest 25th Street.
This is in the Shepherd Historic District, Ward 2, consideration and possible action on application by Grace Rower to number 2, replace shutters elective, and 3, install pair of shutters elective.
Perfect. Is the applicant present? We will ask again, is the applicant present? Do we have any citizens that wish to be heard on this particular project or neighborhood association? Any questions from commissioners?
Yeah, I actually didn't review this as closely, but are those, assuming those are original shutters?
I would say yes.
Said Joe?
Yes.
Yeah. They're,
I mean, in the past, we've always, you know, if they're original, they have to be the same. So in this case, in my opinion, they would either have to replace as is, same place, unless they have documentation that they were used on the second floor, which it's got siding, so it'd be hard to tell, or repair. So, but we can continue.
Hello, I'm sorry, I was muted.
Can you hear now?
Excellent, we can hear you now.
Hello. Okay, I apologize, I was muted.
Is this the applicant?
Yes, Gary Rohr.
And Grace.
Perfect. Talk to us a little bit about your all's project.
Yes, so this home has 7 matching shutters. They are board and batten, not connected. 3 in the front, 3 in the back of the house, 1 on the garage. I heard what you said earlier concerning whether these are historic. I kind of doubt it based on the neighborhood. I did not find any other shutters in the Shepherd's District which have a cutout pattern. These shutters have, each shutter has 4 diamonds cut out of it. First of all, 3 of the shutters have rot, so they have to be somehow replaced. And one question is whether we can replace the shutters having similar dimensions, but possibly be board and batten connected rather than disconnected, or whether they could be a different type of shutter, for example, plantation. In the entire Shepherd's District that we have walked, as I said, we've seen no other shutters with a pattern cut out of them. I suspect that the person who lived here since 1965, who was a handy person, probably came up with this design himself. I have 8 addresses very close to our house, which all have plantation shutters. So the first and most important consideration is that we do need to replace the 3 shutters in the front, pairs of shutters which have rotted. And by the way, I would like to thank Angela for guiding us as to how to beautify this home and keep it historic at the same time. The first thing we did was to take out the green astroturf on the front porch. So we're very much interested in what you guys are about, but we do need to do something with the shutters.
They took the green astroturf that matches the green shutters away.
With a different shade of green. Yeah, different shade of green.
So there are no historic photographs of this house, I guess? You found, or?
No, I did not find any historic pictures of the house.
No. I don't know if I've ever seen that before. Joe, what do you think? Have you seen that style?
They have, I would say, you've probably seen them over in Carey Place where they have the hatchets and, you know, there's this whole series of Tudor, you know, houses and duplexes, and they're over there where they have the little design in them. But the Hatchet House is the most famous, I think, over there, but there's some other ones. So it's, I mean, they are of, you know, the 20s and 30s. So it's possible they were historic. That would be my opinion. Unless, unfortunately, when something's there and you can't prove that something else was there, then it's very difficult for us to approve something, because it's more likely that the shutters around you are newer than the other, than original shutters, you know, that are on the other houses.
Now we are in touch with, I'm sorry,
You know
we
what
are
I'm
in
talking
touch with
about
the,
when I say Carey Place over in, what is it? Gatewood, the Gatewood neighborhood over on, like 17th and, you know, between Penn and May. Anyway,
Okay.
that's, you might want to look over there.
okay,
Now, just
we can do that.
out of curiosity, question for the applicants, are you guys just not a fan of the design of the shutter? Or would you be?
Correct. Well, we're not a fan of the cutouts, and they're deteriorating.
Yes, we are not fans of the cutout, but again, we're fans of the neighborhood. So when we go up and down the neighborhood, we can only find very few board and batten shutters, but we find many, many, many plantation design shutters.
Well, I will tell you, when I saw the shutters on the application, I thought they were quite cool and interesting. I was hoping you were going to say you love them and that we could put them back normally.
Well, that's maybe what we need to do. Like you said, everybody likes something different.
I don't mind the shape of the shutter, or we were going to keep the design, except not the diamond shape. We were just going to keep it a very similar look and then just take out the diamond.
Sure.
Yeah. So they would be just 3 vertical boards with your proposal.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
Yeah. Well,
How would we go about researching to determine whether or not those were, you know, other than what the applicant has already done?
We've had this, the shutter question has been difficult because many times we've had people come in and they want to put shutters, they want to add shutters, or the people across the street have a similar house and they have shutters and then they want to add shutters. And as far as I know, the guidelines that we've used in the past were, unless you can prove that it was a different shutter or that shutters were there, you're pretty well stuck with the shutter that you have. That's been kind of the rule in the past.
So how do you repair something if it doesn't look up to par? I mean, it looks,
you would just have to, you know, remake, you would do your same design, but you would, you know, use the, you know, you would replicate the shutter that's there.
I would imagine a carpenter could do that pretty easily.
I mean, fortunately, it's not a difficult process for this particular shutter.
Yes.
But is it really, is that important to have that cutout inside the shutter?
I mean, according to the guidelines, I would say yes, it is. But I would encourage you to go see that street. And Angela, if you could assist with the address of that street, Carey Place, to them so they could go see the ones that are like that. Maybe you will learn to love them after you see other shutters similar to yours.
Joe, out of curiosity,
Yeah.
can you describe the hatchet house shutters?
It looks just like that, only they've cut out a little hatchet into the shutter. Sometimes it's a heart instead of like they have a diamond. You'll see half a heart on each side, or there's different designs, but they're actually, and so they call that, so Halloween is a very big place over on Cary Place. And so the Hatchet House is well known because of that, because it's association to Halloween.
Sure.
Interesting.
Now, may I ask, to do the historical research, I'm not quite familiar. We have not tried to find a historic picture of the home. How would we go about doing that?
You know, it's not the easiest thing in the world to do, but you might talk to Angela and she could maybe give you some ideas.
All right. One more thing that's interesting about the home that we purchased is that the people lived here since 1965, and the lady who lived here, who we just bought from, she's like 95 years old. So they're friends of our relatives. So we kind of had a connection. I could go back and ask the son, who's about 62, if he knows whether his father came up with that design or whether it was original. Now, I don't know how that could go to satisfy, your needs. Like, if this guy gave an affidavit that in 1970, his dad built these.
Right. We will take that information into consideration. Yes.
Okay.
I looked up the Hatchet House while we're sitting here, which is one nice thing of being at home. And actually has a hatchet carved in the
right.
Yeah, I thought it was similar to this, but it actually has a hatchet. I'd never seen that before.
I know it.
Yeah.
It's kind of it's just a cottage kind of, it was a cottage style kind of thing where people could make their own shutters and do something, do like a logo for their house.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Sure.
There appears to be more than one that has that shutter.
Oh, yeah?
There are numerous structures that appear to have shutters of similar origin. They have a variety of shapes cut in them. We've seen diamonds that are much more angular than these. We've seen some similar to this, the Hatchet House, hearts. When you move into some of the storybook houses that we hear a lot of news about here lately, you see a lot of them then. I think that this age of house, the 1930s, is kind of the beginning of that widespread type of setup.
Sure. Well, if they're from 1937, that would explain why they're rotten.
Yeah. Yeah. What about the addition of the shutters to the center window upstairs? Is that a problem?
That would be where it's not unusual just to have shutters on the ground floor for whatever reason. I'm not really sure. I'm familiar with that neighborhood because I lived there for a long time, and I've seen people even put like little baby shutters on their dormer windows, which is not the thing to do. They never put those originally. Like your house, they don't go up. You shouldn't go up there and put on like little baby shutters. But the one front facing, you would have to have documentation, which would be difficult since it looks like you've got siding over the original wood.
Yes.
So, but it's not uncommon not to have shutters just on the ground floor. That's not unusual.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So
you're saying that it wouldn't be preferred for us to attempt to put any shutters at all on the top in the center.
Not unless you could they since it's got, does it have siding? That's what I'm seeing on the picture.
Correct, yes.
So without taking that off and looking to see if they're, usually you can tell if shutters had been applied, you know, because people painted around them or they were nailed on or something. But if you can't find documentation that they were there, then we could not, it wouldn't be in the guidelines to install them there.
And the only way would be to remove the siding or a photograph.
Right.
Something
Yes.
to prove otherwise.
Right. Maybe your friends and relatives could help you out on that one.
Okay, well, I'll go back to them and see if they have any old pictures or evidence.
Great.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So we can get started on the painting.
So do you want to continue? You want to make a motion to continue, or I can make a motion to continue HPCA 20-00093 to the probably September 3rd meeting?
Okay.
September 2nd.
September 2nd, I'm sorry.
Do we have a second on the continuance motion?
Second.
Moved by Mary Jo Meacham, seconded by Alan Brown. All in favor, please vote in PrimeGov. Motion passes. We will continue the discussion on shutters at the September 2nd meeting.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very
guys.
much. Okay, bye.
Okay, so that concludes our items for individual consideration. That takes us into item number 7. Katie, what other business do we have to discuss?
We have no items for other business this afternoon.
Okay, let's move to item 8, communication and
We have
reports.
lots and lots of administrative approvals. Those are available online if you're already in the website where all of the attachments are. But staff's happy to answer questions about any of those if you want to follow up with us. I did want to say that we have a withdrawal here for HPCA 20-77, and the item listed is inaccurate. They were withdrawing another piece of their application. I believe it had to do with their back porch. You actually just reviewed construction of the new garage there. That's not something you're taking action on, so it's just a typo, but just to clarify that discrepancy. And then we already mentioned previously the City Council action revising Chapter 60 to revise fees. And then finally, Preserve OKC is scheduled to go to Council July 7th. Previously, we had reported that it was going to go at the end of June, but there actually was no council meeting at the end of June. We had our calendars wrong, or I did. But that will go to City Council on July 7th for them to receive the plan. It's already been adopted by the Planning Commission.
Okay. Let's see, anything from Board of Adjustment or Planning Commission?
Nothing to report from Board of Adjustment or Planning Commission.
Okay. Rita, anything from the Municipal Counselor's Office?
Happy 4th, everybody.
Happy 4th to you as well. Our last couple of items, item G, next meeting date, that will be on Wednesday, August 5th at 2 p.m. New applications for this were received by June 30th. New information on projects continued from today's meeting. The upcoming meeting must be submitted to staff by 4 p.m. Tuesday, unless otherwise noted in today's meeting on July 6th, 2020. Do we have any other items from commissioners? Any other citizens that wish to be heard? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Good job.
Thank you, Taylor.
So, happy 4th, everybody.